Press briefing. It's very nice to have you all. We're going to get started here in a second with our wonderful facilitators. My name is Larry Sweatman. I am the digital platforms and content manager at Rock United. Just wanted to give you all a couple of housekeeping items while we're getting started, because we got a lot of folks on the call. Number one, if you could do us a favor, if you're not speaking, just to make sure that you're muted. We want to make sure that we have the speakers on the screen when they're speaking. Number two, for the press that are on the call, one, thank you for being here very much. Two, feel free to use the chat to post your questions. I'm going to be facilitating that, sort of like keeping them together. But when you do, just make sure to put the outlet that you're from and then put your question, and I'll put them all together. And our wonderful facilitator, Anthony, will address the Q&As once we get to that section. And then lastly, when everyone is speaking, if you could do us a favor, we like to record these things, as you can see in the that corner up there. We're going to record this. So just do us a favor. Whenever it's your turn to speak, just sort of take a breath before you speak. And then like afterwards, once we transition over, just take a breath. And so that we can make sure to get everything that you're saying on camera. And lastly, if any of you used a link and the name that you are on in the meeting is Eva's name. It was just a sort of link issue we dealt with. It was my fault. I apologize. You can just go, you can hover over your name and go to the ellipsis in the top right corner, and you can rename yourself. And so as long as we can do that, make sure everybody's on camera when we're talking. This is going to be a great meeting. Thanks everyone for being here. And with that said, let me turn it over to Mr. Anthony, our wonderful communications director at Rock United.
Thank you, Larry, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our press conference on the nation's first ever Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights. I'm Anthony Advincula, Communications Director at Rock United. Thank you all for being with us today. You will hear from restaurant workers, our leaders at Rock United, community partners, and some elected officials. All the presentations throughout the conference are now on record. Without further introduction, I will hand it off now to our first speaker, Dr. Sekou Sibi, President and CEO of the Restaurant Opportunity Centers United. Sibi.
Thank you all for being here. I'm Sekou Sibi, and I'm the President and CEO of Rock United and Rock Action. We're here to demand that the U.S. House and Senate codify a right that restaurant workers deserve, right that will allow them to thrive and live with dignity. This year, Rock United celebrates 20 years of existence. We are the largest and oldest restaurant worker-led organization in the country. Our mission is to improve restaurant workers' lives by building worker power and the united workers of various backgrounds that own shared goals and values. Our programs fall into three categories: workplace justice, policy and research, training and education. We're organizing embedded in all three of them. Through 20 years of our engagement with restaurant workers, we've heard loud and clear the challenges, injustices, and the discrimination have many forms and intersect with many policies. Therefore, we came together to propose a comprehensive and systemic remedy in the form of the Restaurant Worker Bill of Rights. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated structural issues that restaurant workers have been facing. According to our study that included responses from more than 1,000 restaurant workers, 85% of them experienced wage loss. 91% received no compensation for working in hazardous conditions. 34% had no access to personal protective equipment, and 1 in 10 workers was forced to go to work while COVID positive due to lack of sick leave or economic or mere employer pressure. As a result, 60% reported that they are looking for work outside of the restaurant industry. The early weeks of the pandemic have also given us a glimpse into widespread solidarity with restaurants and other essential workers. This reassured us that a systemic change across a myriad of policies affecting women, mothers, people of color, immigrants, who comprise the vast majority of restaurant workers is not only popular, but it is possible. Now, Cynthia Gomez, our National Membership Engagement Director, will share a bit about the process of creating the Restaurant Worker Bill of Rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sekou-Sibi. And one more time, thank you all for being present. My name is Cynthia Gomez, and I am the National Membership Engagement Director from ROC United. Starting in November 2021 through February 2022, we were in conversations with almost 70 worker members and a limited number of allies, discussing a vision of a better life for restaurant workers. We started to create a Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights, a comprehensive policy framework that we can champion at local, state, and national levels, systematically addressing challenges, injustices, and discrimination that restaurant workers, especially Black, Indigenous, people of color, and women face every day. At first state of the Restaurant Workers event on March 1st, 2022 in Washington, D.C., we announced a plan to engage in a robust outreach to our members, other restaurant workers, organizations active in workers' rights and labor movement, and all people who have an interest in working towards an equitable, just, healthy, and prosperous society. Our membership leadership committee of restaurant workers from around the country refine our outreach tools. And through spring and summer of 2022, we engage thousands of workers to build out the first Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights. The committee then reviewed and approved the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights for its release on Labor Day. The input that we received from restaurant workers was both heartbreaking and inspiring. They shared with us how stressful, unhealthy, unlivable it is to work in the industry, but also how they love the people they work with. Their perspectives further reinforce the need for a complete transformation of the industry's labor practices and other policies affecting their lives, our lives. In addition to low wages, unpredictable scheduling, the lack of healthcare, and other issues, an important theme emerged from restaurant workers' input: their need for vacation time and time to spend with their families and loved ones. We have heard loud and clear that employment conditions in the restaurant industry put a lot of stress on personal relationships in the families with the kids. Now let's hear a few of our members as they reflect on their experiences working in the restaurant industry. And first, we have Olivia Tovar Urbina, who is a restaurant worker from Los Angeles, California. Welcome, Olivia. Welcome to this space.
Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia Tovar Urbina. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I have been a restaurant worker since 2005. My experience as a restaurant worker at the beginning of my journey wasn't the greatest, as many other workers. At that time, back in 2005, I did not receive a fair salary. I had no breaks or lunch time as a regular day in good routine. After struggling I continue believing in a good change after all those long hours worked with low pay and almost no benefits and job protections. I am not the only one experiencing this, but dozens of other restaurant workers are in the same situation. Today, I have more knowledge about my rights. As a worker, I know what I deserve, and this is my reason to call for change. I believe the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights is going to be beneficial not only for me, but to many other workers by protecting workers, improving our salary, and empowering our labor rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you so much for being here. Our next restaurant worker member who will speak is Debbie Riggs, who is a server from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Debbie, and I have worked in the restaurant industry for nearly 10 years. I lost my job when the pandemic swept through this country. Honestly, I have not returned to serving because of the overwhelming feeling of dread that overcomes me when I think of returning to an industry that is void of boundaries and safety nets. There is a point that we miss when we speak of the industry. We speak on the sexual harassment, wage theft, lack of health insurance, and so many other issues, but no one speaks about how utterly soul draining it is knowing not only can you not prevent these things from happening, but when they happen, there is no recourse. I am not in this industry because of failure or lack of education or any negative assumptions people have about those who work in restaurants. When I moved to the DC area, I knew I didn't want to be a starving artist. I've worked in DC restaurants now for 7 years. Honestly, I love it. I loved it. I hated it. It kept me conflicted. I always want to see it become a better place. As Americans, we love our Constitution. The Bill of Rights was written to define the rights of the American citizen in relationship to the government. And so it will be with the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights. It will establish a relationship between employee and employer and define the rights of the worker. I'll give you an example from my life. I'm a daughter and a sister. My mother called me and said, "Debbie, you need to come home. Your brother's in the hospital. He needs a heart transplant." I went home and ended up staying for a month. In this industry, if you don't work, you don't eat. Also, you're replaceable. Had there been a Restaurant Bill of Rights when this happened to me, the right to healing and rest would have protected me. I would have had the right to paid time off and a job to return to. My hope is that this Bill of Rights will alleviate the mental stress that comes with navigating the restaurant industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie, for sharing your story with us. I just want to say that these two stories is a reflection of many other stories from all the restaurant workers. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Lauren Long, who is our National Policy Coordinator at ROC United. Welcome, Dr. Lauren.
Good morning, and thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Again, my name is Lauren Long, and I serve as the National Policy Coordinator here at ROC United. As was mentioned, thousands of restaurant workers came together to create the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights. Among the early institutional supporters of the bill are also the following organizations: National Black Worker Center, Family Values at Work, National Employment Law Project, Jobs with Justice, East Biloxi Community Collaborative, Jobs to Move America, Center for Law and Social Policy, Power Switch Action, Catch Fire Movement, For All, Mississippi Black Women's Roundtable, Paid Leave for All Action, STEPS Coalition, Main Street Alliance, National Immigration Law Center, Americans for Democratic Action, Shriver Center on Poverty Law, Oxfam America, and a better balance. We request that the U.S. House and Senate introduce resolutions that will express Congress's intent to enact policies ensuring the rights in the Restaurant Worker Bill of Rights are codified. Our federal government, through transparent, inclusive consultation, collaboration, and partnership with restaurant workers, including members of frontline and vulnerable communities, labor unions, civil society groups, academia, and businesses, must ensure that restaurant workers have the following rights. Number 1, the right to a thriving life by being paid a thriving wage, having access to safe, stable, and sufficient housing and affordable childcare, and being economically secure in retirement. Number 2, the right to healing and rest by having paid time to recover from illness, care for family members, and engage in life outside of work, as well as consistent schedules that allow their families to thrive. Number 3, the right to a safe and dignified work environment by ensuring restaurant workers are safe from discrimination and harassment in the workplace. Number 4, the right to health care and bodily autonomy by making certain that all restaurant workers have access to comprehensive and affordable health care, including a full range of reproductive and gender-affirming healthcare services. And number 5, the right to participation in governance by exercising their rights as citizens, voters, activists, and organizers at all levels of government and our workplaces, free from pressure and coercion from employers. Thank you all so much. And now we will hear from our community partners. First, we will have Sammy Shaven, Policy Coordinator of Family Values at Work. Sammy, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you, Lauren. And thank you, Olivia and Debbie, for sharing your experiences with us. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sammy Chavin. I use she, her pronouns. And as Lauren mentioned, I am the Federal Policy Coordinator for Family Values at Work. For those of you who don't know us, we're a movement of over 2,000 organizations in 27 states, including the fantastic team at Rock, Pennsylvania, working toward economic, racial, and gender justice. We unite activists and workers to win policies that support working people and their families, like paid family and medical leave, childcare, and paid sick and safe days. We confront our nation's long history of coerced and underpaid caregiving labor and counter it with demands for an economy based on care and equity. Our movement promotes the leadership of women, low-wage workers, and workers of color to achieve transformative policy change and actively engage underrepresented communities to build deep long-term power. I am so proud to be speaking today alongside our partners from the Restaurant Opportunity Center United to share Family Values at Work's endorsement of the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights. As a movement that focuses on building an economy based on care and equity, we are thrilled that ROC has included the right to healing and rest as one of the 5 pillars of this Bill of Rights. We believe that no one should be punished for being a good parent or for following doctor's orders. Yet today, over 30 million workers lack access to even a single paid sick day. They lose pay and risk losing their job when they're sick or when they need to care for a sick loved one. BIPOC workers, lower wage workers, and hourly workers are the least likely to have access to paid sick time and the most likely to have been considered essential during the pandemic. Earlier this year, when ROC released their restaurant worker COVID impact report, we saw that a striking 72% of restaurant workers had no access to paid leave or paid sick days during the pandemic. The past few years have made so clear how interdependent our lives are and how unprepared we were to prevent the spread of COVID. But when people had sick days, we saw a significant reduction in cases and deaths. Restaurant workers, essential workers, and truly all workers deserve better, and we have the ability to change this. Our charge is simple. Congress must make the entire Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights into law. No one should have to choose between their income and their health or their income and their family security. The Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights will ensure that all restaurant workers will be entitled to time to rest, time to heal, and time to live with the security of continued income and a job to come back to. We can create a world with an economy based on care, equity, and respect, a world where everyone can thrive and access care or provide care for those they love. Passing the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights is just the first step to making this a reality for restaurant workers and all workers. Thank you so much, ROC, for your pioneering work to ensure that restaurant workers are treated with dignity and entitled to the right to healing and rest. Thank you for letting me speak today, and I'll turn it back to Lauren.
Thank you so much, Sammy. We appreciate your partnership and we appreciate you for being here today. Our next speaker is Shanika Holder White, Deputy Director of National Black Worker Center. Shanika, are you here today? So Shanika may not be present with us today, but she did send her statement. So due to the devastating flooding in Florida, unfortunately, it looks like she was not able to join us, but I'm more than happy to read her message for everyone. Good day, everyone. I'm pretending to be Shanika. My name is Shanika Holder White, Deputy Director at the National Black Worker Center. I'm joining you good people on today to unequivocally express our support for the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights. At emancipation, Black workers were locked onto no wage and low wage work. Employers in the hospitality sector hired newly freed enslaved people for no wage, expecting their income would come from tips received from white patrons. In 1938, when the first federal minimum wage was enacted, the law still allowed for employers to pay tipped workers as little as $0 an hour. Today, the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers has capped at $2.13 an hour for the last 30 years since 1991, an increase of only $2 over 150 years since emancipation. This legacy of enslavement continues while Black workers, women of color, and immigrants serve as the backbone of the restaurant industry. They persistently experience sexual harassment, occupational segregation, and pay inequity. Black workers have long segregated into low-income positions in the industry. The race and gender wage gap between Black women, tipped workers, and white men tipped workers increased by more than a third over the last 4 years, from $4.19 an hour in 2017 to $5.68 an hour in 2021. These practices must be eradicated. As we strive to fight for equity for Black working people, the National Black Worker Center believes that the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights is a stepping stone to closing the inequity gap for working class people. The Black Worker Bill of Rights, the Restaurant Worker Bill of Rights will provide an avenue for working class families to have resources, support, and opportunities needed to live full and free lives. Restaurant workers deserve the right to healing and rest, to safe and dignity in the workplace, a voice at the decision-making table, adequate health care and bodily autonomy, the right to organize, and last but not least, the right and opportunity to experience a fully thriving life. The National Black Worker Center and Black working people stand in solidarity with ROC United, and most importantly, with restaurant workers across the country, because we recognize the inequities in wages, practices, and discrimination in the industry. These inequities create barriers to success that must be addressed. The National Black Worker Center believes that the Restaurant Worker Bill of Rights gives restaurant workers the support they need to address the poor working conditions, labor standards, and the issue of poverty, wages that restaurant workers experience. The Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights was developed by restaurant workers themselves, and they are calling on us to provide dignity equity in pay, economic opportunities to those who put food on our table. Join us today in supporting restaurant workers. Support the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights. And we thank Shanika so much for sending her message. And we send her our warm wishes and hope she's doing well in the midst of the storm in Florida. And now I will turn it over to Eva Putsova, who is our political director here at Rock United.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome. We're very happy that you're here. It's my pleasure to share with you that in a moment, we will hear from Representative Rashida Tlaib from Michigan, Representative Chuy Garcia from Illinois, and Representative Pramila Jayapal from Washington. And we expect to have here, in solidarity with the restaurant workers, Representative Marie Newman from Illinois. So let's first play video messages from Representatives Tlaib and Garcia, one after another. Taylor.
Hello, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Thank you so much for having me today. Regardless of what we look like or where we're from, we all want the same things: a good paying job, a brighter future for our children and grandchildren, and an opportunity to thrive, not just survive. That's why I'm so incredibly proud to support the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights and stand in solidarity with you all today. The workers of our hospitality and food service industries deserve a work environment that is centered on human dignity and safety. The COVID-19 pandemic laid bare how thin our social safety net is, and that far too many of our workers living on the fringe right now, barely making ends meet. But even prior to the pandemic, the exploitation of our service industry workers has been happening for decades now. Today, the federal minimum wage for tipped workers is just $2.13 an hour. $2.13 an hour isn't a living wage, it's a starvation wage. Unsurprisingly, the loopholes like these given to the restaurant industry have created an unpredictable work environment that has fostered discrimination and retaliation. The labor of our restaurant workers should be recognized, as you all know, and protected just like any other labor of so many other industries. So that's why today I am proud to join you all in solidarity with the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights. Restaurant workers deserve a right to a thriving life. No worker, not one, should have to wonder whether they will be able to pay their rent at the end of the month because they can't rely on consistent tips and their hourly schedules at the whims of their managers. You all deserve the right to heal and rest with vacation time and paid sick leave. Too often, restaurant workers are forced to work through extreme weather, and as we all saw, through public health emergencies with the COVID-19 pandemic. No worker should have to choose between taking care of their physical and mental health or paying their bills because they lack paid sick leave. A workplace cannot be without the right to healthcare and bodily autonomy. No worker, particularly those in service industry, will have true economic freedom until we have universal healthcare. And an economy that forces its workers to choose between their health and their livelihood will always prioritize profits before their safety. And that is unacceptable. You all deserve the right to a safe and dignified work environment, one that is protected from discrimination, sexual harassment, and abuse, one that demands a workplace that is free from the threat of ICE and police harassment. As restaurant workers, you all know that democracy is the process that exists both from within and outside the workplace. Every worker deserves a seat at the table, with the freedom to speak clearly about their rights and demands for a more just workplace environment and the protections and be protected from retaliation. We all know across the country, hundreds and thousands of service industry workers are organizing, demanding the right to collectively bargain. When companies like Starbucks and Chipotle are closing unionized stores over, quote, safety concerns, we know what's really going on. And we will not accept this illegal retaliation. A just and equitable workplace is not something that is, quote, given to us by corporate suits, depending on how generous they are feeling on any particular day. A just and equitable workplace is a right. And all across the country, restaurant workers are standing up and refusing to accept our broken status quo. As we fight in Congress on behalf of our workers, we must ensure that our work centers the most vulnerable workers, including our restaurant and hospitality workers. That's why restaurant workers deserve and demand a Bill of Rights. I could not be more proud of all of you for all the work that you're doing to humanize this effort and demanding what you all deserve. And that's why, again, I am proud to join you today in supporting the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights. You will always have a fighter and a partner in the United States Congress and me. Thank you so much for having me.
We're waiting for our second video.
Hi, I'm Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia, and I live right around the corner of 26th Street, and my district also includes an area known as Paseo Boricua in Chicago. These two commercial corridors are home to scores of restaurants that help shape the identity of our neighborhoods. Restaurant workers, the majority of whom are women, immigrants, and disproportionately workers of color, were on the front lines of the global pandemic. We saw restaurant workers struggle to make ends meet when their workplaces shut down. We saw them slowly return to work, sometimes afraid of the risk it meant for their lives and their families. But the challenges restaurant workers have faced predate the pandemic. In 14 states, employers are still permitted to pay restaurant workers just $2.13 an hour before tips, an hourly rate Congress has not raised since 1991. Only 31% of restaurants offer health insurance coverage for their staff. Restaurant workers live in poverty at nearly 3 times the rate of the general workforce and access food stamps, Medicaid at nearly twice the rate of the overall workforce. It's time to give restaurant workers their rights, pay, and protection that they deserve. It's why we fought for the minimum wage reform by co-sponsoring the Raise the Wage Act and the PRO Act to protect collective bargaining rights all employees deserve. It's why I have fought to end sub-minimum wage and tip workers since before I came to Washington. And going forward, that means the right to a dignified life with a thriving wage, access to safe, stable housing, and affordable childcare, and the prospect of a secure retirement. It means giving restaurant workers the right to pay time off when they're sick or need to take care of a sick family member, or simply to rest and take a day off from the physical toll of restaurant work without the fear of losing income or even their jobs. It means having consistent schedules that allow them to have a stable family life and the ability to plan their life and not live day by day. It means access to affordable health care and safety from discrimination and harassment in the workplace. This Bill of Rights for restaurant workers is not a wish list, it's necessary. We can make it possible if we work together to give them the benefits and the working conditions they've earned. I'm committed to continue working with my colleagues in Congress to make this Bill of Rights the restaurant workers' congressional resolution. I stand with you.
Thank you so very much. And in just a moment, we're going to hear from Representative Mary Newman. But before, we received a statement from Representative Pramila Jayapal, and I'm going to read it for you. Restaurant workers comprise 1/10 of the workforce in the United States, with the majority being people of color. They are a critical part of our workforce and yet have consistently been carved out of crucial labor protections. In the wealthiest country in the world, it is unconscionable that restaurant workers earn as little as $2.13 per hour, while CEOs and shareholders rake in record profits. I applaud the Restaurant Opportunity Centers United and Rock Action for their fearless leadership in the fight for dignity and economic justice for restaurant workers across the country. Their Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights lays out a bold vision for a food service industry that guarantees workers just wages, healthcare, paid leave and sick days, a safe workplace, and a voice on the job and in their government. Now, I'd like to welcome Representative Mary Newman, who is here in person, who's going to share a few words with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for having me today. I couldn't be more thrilled to be here and to be supportive. A cause near and dear to my heart. I also want to say from the outset that your organization has been such a great, loud and proud voice. So here to support you always. But, you know, I think it goes without saying the COVID pandemic created a situation where it was particularly brutal to restaurant workers and the restaurant industry. I think something like 85% of workers experienced wage loss, 91% received no compensation for working in incredibly harrowing circumstances and hazardous conditions. 34% have no access to personal protective equipment during that time. And then 1 in 10 workers were forced to work while being COVID positive. And I know workers personally that went through that. So it was astonishing to me. And there's a special place in heaven for everybody that had to go through all of that. But I think we all can be very clear and we can all understand that this is not acceptable for anyone. And while, you know, I think Congress has done a good job of delivering money to the restaurant industries, we still have not solved the worker situation. It's critical that we start repairing these harms. Everybody deserves health care, fair wages, sick leave, and a healthy and safe working environment. So it's really clear. I'm with everybody on this call, right? Is that we need a workers' bill of rights and we need it now. It's a policy framework that would help everybody understand the importance of having a safe, healthy, predictable, and fair environment and socially equitable. And I see it as my own obligation, all of Congress's obligation to do so. This is not hard, and honestly, as I often say, this is not brain surgery. We just need to get it done. So what you have is my commitment to keep fighting on all these matters until it gets done. And I just want to thank the Restaurant Opportunity Center for all of your great work. And I will always be here for all of you. And until then, you have my great thanks to all of the restaurant workers out there that have been through harrowing experiences. And thank you for your great service to our nation and ongoing service. So with that, I hope everybody stays well through the winter months. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Newman. And again, big thanks to Representatives Tlaib, Garcia, and Jayapal. We are very happy to have such great champions of labor in Congress, and we are looking forward to seeing the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights introduced both in the House and in Senate. Now we're going to go to the Q&A section of our program, and this part is going to be coordinated by Anthony.
Thank you, Eva, and thank you to our Congress members for joining us today. We really greatly appreciate your time, greatly appreciate you. Now that we are in for the Q&A session, we will have a chance to hear from our reporters who are here with us. We have a number of journalists here from across the country, from television stations to podcasters to print journalists. Feel free to direct your questions to a specific speaker. You may do so, or I will ask all of them to chime in and address your questions. The first one in line is from Claybel Marcano of Reporte Hispano. It's a Spanish language publication in New Jersey. Claybel.
Hi, good morning. I have two questions. First one, for anybody. Do you consider that this law is more likely to be approved in the federal level or in each state independently? My second question is about the immigrant community. As you know, the undocumented people, a lot of people working in the restaurant sector. I don't hear anything when you talk about all this protection, anything about protection for people who are undocumented. So, you know, they are very discriminated, they are very bad situation because they don't have papers. So they get very bad situation in this restaurant and in the job. So I don't hear anything specific about protection for this kind of worker.
Let me get started with that first. Thank you for your question. My name is Sekou Sibi, and I want to tell you that I am myself an immigrant. I've been undocumented for 15 years here in the US. I'm from West Africa. I have organizer workers who were undocumented like me, and when I was organizing them, I was myself undocumented. So for us, a Bill of Rights is for workers. If you are undocumented, it doesn't change the fact that you are a worker. So we don't make a difference between those who are documented, those who are undocumented. The Bill of Rights is for everyone. If you work in America, you deserve that respect, period. And we don't think that it is because somebody is undocumented that you deserve less than anybody who is documented. That wouldn't be right. And we have organized and won more than $10 million in back wages. And I can tell you that about 40% of that money went back to undocumented workers because they had a right and there are lawyers who are standing behind them and who continue to organize them. So that's on the one hand. On the second hand, we plan to introduce aid at the federal level as well as at state and local level. It is really important for us to protect workers where they are. We definitely need the support of our, immigrant communities. Because another thing that I would like to say, I would like to refer you back to our mission, which is to improve restaurant workers' life by building worker power and united workers of various backgrounds. And when we mean various background around shared goals and values, it means that it doesn't have to be only people who are documented or who are citizens, right? It is people who speak different languages, who have different status. And that's our mission. This is why we're committed to it. Thank you.
Thank you, CB. I believe Eva will also address that question.
Yeah, just very quickly. I'm a ROC United National Political Director, and as CB noted, we have plans to talk to every single council member and every state legislature who is going to listen to us and to introduce the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights in forms of resolutions or ordinances or other bills to make sure that the rights of the restaurant workers are protected at all levels. And as far as immigration policies goes, our Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights, especially the resolution that we hope that's going to be taken up by Congress, calls for real immigration reform, and we need to normalize the status of the millions of people in the United States who live and work in the shadows of the economy, of the official economy, but they're contributing members of our society. And so we very much recognize that we need to have a comprehensive approach to the rights of restaurant workers, and immigration reform is part of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go to our next question, I was wondering if Sammy can address that. And I'm sure you are also working with a lot of immigrants.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm having an internet connection issue. So just to make sure I heard the question correctly about making sure that immigrant communities are included in any policies that we pass.
Correct. Including undocumented immigrants.
Okay, great. Thank you. So it's actually something that's been really important to a lot of members of our network across the country. So there are 12 states that now have paid leave policies. So we're looking to find a way for paid leave and paid sick days to replicate those states. I know in California in particular, there's a great program that protects undocumented folks' identity and their work status. So I'd be happy to send some follow-up materials on that. But it's a key priority to us to make sure that every single worker can access these benefits. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Our next question is coming from Danielle Smith of Public News Service. Danielle?
I did
Yeah,
put the,
go ahead, please.
I'm sorry. I did put the question in the chat. Let me see where is it? I just wanted to know, what role do unions play in addressing inequality, and equity in restaurant industries? And do unions support the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights Act? And that's directed to anyone.
So I can start to answer this question. So our goal is to build a robust support for the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights that includes the support of labor unions, organizations, worker centers, organizations that are active in the area of workers' rights, but also regular people, whether they're diners or workers in other sectors, because these rights that we are demanding are quite, to be frank, universal rights. All people want them. And so we've been in conversations talking with labor unions, and they definitely see how this is beneficial to our workers, including their members. And we are going to regularly share with the public and with the media the list of organizations that officially endorse the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights. But as our goal is that the federal government actually consults with not only restaurant workers and but also unions and others who these rights are affecting when crafting policies. And that's one of the key principles of the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights and the resolution we would like to see in Congress. And it's not an accident that one of the rights in the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights focuses on participation in democracy, because that means that restaurant workers ought to have a seat at the table at their workplace and be represented by labor unions, and to be free to bargain for their rights at the workplace. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. We have about 9 minutes, and we have 3 more questions left in the queue. So the next question will be asked by Moshin Zahir of Urdu News.
You need to unmute, Moshin.
Yes, thank you. My question is, what do you think, what are the main hurdles for you to get this Bill of Rights passed from the Congress? And we just heard the messages from members of the Congress, and I believe, if I'm not wrong, all of them were Democrats. So do you have supports from both sides of the aisle, especially in the Republican Party? Can you give us some update or the breakdown?
So I'll be taking this on too as the National Political Director. So we are at the very beginning of the process of starting to work with the members of Congress. And so today is the day one when we are starting to build the coalition of representatives who are going to support the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights. We think that the Restaurant Workers Bill of Rights has nothing to do with partisanship, that the rights of restaurant workers are human rights, and what we demand, every restaurant workers, no matter what their party affiliation or whether they're not affiliated, deserves. And so we don't see a reason why living a life with dignity and working in a safe and welcoming workplace should be a matter of partisan disagreements. But we realize this is all work in progress, and we will be reaching out to every member of Congress who is willing to meet with us and discuss the working conditions for restaurant workers.
Thank you. The next question actually came in as a text message, and I'm going to read this. This is for Dr. Sekou-Sibi. What are your plans in the future to build worker power using the Restaurant Workers' Bill of Rights? And then for Ms. Lauren Long, it says here, what are also the plans of ROC United in the South, especially in the Mississippi area?
Thank you, Anthony. I think our plan to build power is really to associate with our immigrant communities and do as many outreach as possible. This is the introduction. In all our 10 cities, we will be talking to elected officials, but also to our communities. So it ties to another question that I see in the queue. It is a translation aspect, because the material isn't translated in English and Spanish. That's not enough. We're actually seeking funding to organize a massive outreach to all our communities, immigrant communities, who also need to understand it. This is part of the reason why I have to say, in all the cities that we've been engaged in, we've been part of language access, change language access policies, because government material, workers' right material from the Department of Labor within our division, when we talk about workers' rights, it is not necessarily translated in the languages that our communities understand. So that fight means that for ROC, it is very important that the materials get translated in the language of the communities so that they can understand, because at the end of the day, knowledge is power, right? People cannot ask for the right if they don't know those right. And if it is not translated in the language, we will not know. So we will not make a mistake of not translating the Bill of Rights into as many languages as possible. We already know the demographic of restaurant workforce. So it is now a matter of time and getting the resources to translate those material, but we cannot do it alone. It is very important that immigrant communities also help us translate material, but to distribute those material to the communities, because that's the only way we can build the power. It is by working together. We have a role to play, but we can't do it alone. We have to work with our immigrant communities and everybody else so that we can build the worker power. And we've been doing that for 20 years now.
Thank you, Dr. Sibi. The second question is actually for Lauren Long. Would you mind addressing that question? This is from the Reuters. What is the plan of ROC Mississippi and in the South about the Restaurant Workers' Bill of Rights?
The plan around the Restaurant Worker Bill of Rights, particularly for the state of Mississippi and stretched across the southern states, is much like that of the national organization and our other regions of ROC United. And so with our messaging bill, it's, as Dr. Sibi said, we are to increase worker power. The way we are to do that is to use this bill also for outreach. Mississippi is mostly associated, when you hear in terms of the restaurant industry, you hear a lot of negative associations. And so this particular bill will help us to challenge some of the stigmas that's associated with the restaurant industry. It'll also give us the opportunity to increase our outreach. Now that we have something to mobilize the power with, we use it to increase our outreach. And so we use it to bring more restaurant workers on board. We use it to also bring their family members and other people of the restaurant industry on board. I myself started out as a restaurant worker at the age of 16, and I worked in the restaurant industry throughout undergrad until I had my first daughter, who's now 11 years old. And so for people like myself who's also interested in the restaurant industry and interested in improving the standards of the restaurant industry. We use this bill as an outreach tool to also pull these people into the movement. The movement here in Mississippi started with the Power of the Worker Summit this past summer, where we introduced the bill to members and to a lot of our partners and allies who also came to support. And so again, we will use it to continue to build our presence across the South. We use it again to also build relationships, it's not just a bill to introduce to people and essentially dwindle away. We will continue to build on this bill that we've introduced, and a part of building on it is evaluating the components that we have that are in the bill. And so we had a question around immigration. A part of what we're doing is it's a working piece, and because it's a working bill, we use it to gain more input, which from our communities. But again, our communities will need to know that this bill that it's been introduced. So again, our plan is to grow our membership base, introduce it to members outside of the restaurant industry that are interested in it. These will be our stakeholders. We also plan to, like I said, introduce it to our members of Congress to get them not just interested, but to kind of build a little momentum or a lot more momentum around the actual restaurant industry across the South, because I know for states like Mississippi, we have restaurants on nearly every corner. And so it's pretty imperative that these restaurant workers understand what we're doing, and they understand that the power that it brings, not just to them as individuals, but to the industry. Because I'm sorry.
Lauren, we actually have, we run out of time.
I got you.
Yeah, but we will send this recording to all the reporters. But to give the last parting shot, I'm going to ask Dr. Seavey to give the last message for this press conference.
I think it is an exciting day. Number one, because ROC is celebrating 20th anniversary today. We have gone a long way. But I do have to say that the Restaurant Worker Bill of Rights have been launched on Labor Day. From Labor Day to today, we've been able to have 19 organizations support the Bill of Rights. We haven't been able to speak to everybody yet because it is only 3 weeks that we've been able to put it together. Our goal is a year from now to have at least 1,000 organizations supporting this Bill of Rights. And this is how we build power. We believe in workers. We believe in the dignified life of our workers. And nobody should be treated in the way that our workers have been treated, especially the past 3 years during the pandemic. So I hope all together we can share this message and we can support the ROC in building a much stronger organization by spreading the word and helping us to translate this material and distribute it in the communities that actually really need to know what work we're doing. So I do want to thank you for being here and to being a vector to propagate our message to your communities too. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Seavey. This is just a wonderful discussion. I'm so sorry that we ran out of time. But if you have any follow-up questions, please email me at anthony@rocunited.org. And I'll post that also in the chat. And then we will connect you with our speakers. Thank you to all our speakers, our reporters, and everyone here for your time and participation today. We will send the recording of this event along with a press release. This conference is now adjourned. Thank you.